You don't need to be better than anyone else. You just need to be more disciplined than they are. In a world where most people crave ease and comfort, choosing purposeful discomfort already sets you apart from 90% of the crowd. These are 10 small habits. But if you practice them with intention, they'll shape you into a man who cannot be easily shaken. Watch this all the way through and choose 3 habits to begin today. 1. Start your day like a warrior. Don't touch your phone. There's a simple but incredibly powerful way to shift the entire course of your life. You don't need to buy anything, study anything, or become someone else. You just need to do one thing. When you wake up, don't touch your phone. Sounds simple? Don't be fooled by the simplicity. That phone, with its flashing notifications, dramatic headlines, and the endless scroll of social media, isn't just stealing your attention. It's hijacking your sovereignty. The moment you grab it first thing in the morning, you're surrendering the direction of your day. You're letting the outside world tell you who you are, what to feel, and what to fear. Epictetus once said, "You are a slave to whatever you can't put down." So ask yourself, are you a slave to your phone? Now imagine this. A warrior doesn't wake up and dive into chaos. He isn't dragged around by the noise. He wakes up with presence, owning each breath, each thought, each first move. You can be that man. Treat those first moments after waking as your training ground for self-mastery. That tiny decision, to leave your phone untouched, sends a bold message to your brain. I am in charge. I decide. I control my life. And from that point forward, you're no longer reacting. You're living with intent. Ask yourself this. If you can't control a simple reflex like not grabbing your phone, how will you ever master the bigger temptations? How will you face the pressure of work, finances, or relationships if you can't even command the first seconds of your day? Control doesn't begin with the big things. It begins with this. Want to change your life? Start by not reaching for your phone the moment you wake up. Give yourself just 5 minutes of quiet. That's all it takes to activate your inner power, your discipline, your focus. This isn't a challenge. It's a declaration of who you are. You're a grown man. Time to act like a warrior. The world will always be loud. But you don't have to answer right away. Instead, listen to yourself first. 2. Cold water on your face, fire in your mind. So you've started taking back your mornings. You wake up, and for the first few sacred minutes, you resist the pull of the screen. You're no longer reacting, you're commanding. But now comes the next move. It's time to step deeper into discomfort. It's time to remind yourself. Discipline isn't about feeling ready, it's about choosing the hard thing because it makes you stronger. You walk to the sink. You turn on the tap. The water runs cold, sharp, biting, real. You lean in. And then, in a single motion, you splash that icy water onto your face. It shocks you. But it wakes up something primal inside you. This isn't just about washing your face. This is a ritual. A signal. A declaration to your brain, your body, and your instincts. I am not here for comfort. I am here for control. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most respected Stoic emperors, forced himself to bathe in cold water regularly. Not for health, not for a trend, not for bragging rights. He did it to train his will. He did it to remind himself every morning that he could walk toward difficulty, not away from it. You see, comfort is seductive. It whispers soft lies. Stay in bed. Do it later. Make it easier on yourself. And every time you say yes to comfort, you lose a little of your edge. But cold water doesn't whisper. It slaps. It jolts. It confronts. And that's exactly why you need it. Because when you voluntarily expose yourself to something uncomfortable, even as small as cold water, you send a loud, undeniable message to your subconscious. I choose hardship. I am not afraid. And that message echoes through the rest of your day. Every tough conversation, every stressful deadline, every temptation to slack off, it all feels different when your first decision of the day was to lean into discomfort. It doesn't matter if it's winter. It doesn't matter if it's inconvenient. What matters is that you do it anyway. Because that's the kind of man you're becoming, the one who doesn't wait to feel ready, the one who acts in spite of the resistance. Cold water won't just shock your skin. It'll ignite your focus. Clear your mind. Sharpen your presence. It's a reset. A ritual. A moment where you look yourself in the mirror, with water dripping down your face, and you know. You are not the same as you were yesterday. You are not soft. You are not passive. You are becoming forged through choice, not circumstance. You don't need to scream. You don't need motivation. You just need to take one step toward discomfort every single day. And when that cold water hits your face tomorrow morning, remember this. Every drop is a reminder. A reminder that you have power. That you are not ruled by convenience. That you are willing to do what most men avoid. Because greatness is not built in grand gestures. It's built in small, brutally consistent acts of courage, like cold water on your face before the world even knows you're awake. So don't reach for warmth. Don't reach for ease. Reach for your edge. And walk into your day like a man who has already proven, to himself, that he is in control. 3. Order your space, command your mind, make your bed. You've started to reclaim your mornings. First, you resist the screen. Second, you shock your system with cold water, a deliberate step into discomfort. But now comes something that seems smaller. Almost too simple. But don't let that fool you. It is one of the most underrated acts of self-discipline, making your bed. Because what you do immediately after a discomfort ritual defines how your mind processes that experience. It's not enough to feel a surge of clarity from cold water, you must translate that energy into order. Into intention. The very moment you rise, make your bed. Not in 5 minutes. Not after coffee. Do it before the world can even ask anything of you. That action sends a signal that your life is not dictated by how you feel, but by what you decide. Making your bed is not about cleanliness. It's about completion. About winning the very first battle of the day with calm, focused, immediate action. It's not an aesthetic choice, it's a mental one. Every time you complete something right after waking, your mind begins to see itself as capable, precise, and powerful. It reinforces the story you're telling yourself, that you are a man of order. A man of will. A man who takes care of the small details, because he understands that the big ones are built on top of them. Let's be honest, most men don't make their bed. They roll out of it, half asleep, distracted, already thinking about problems they haven't even faced. And in that chaos, their first move is passive. Unintended. Messy. They've already started the day on the back foot. But not you. Not anymore. When you make your bed, you're not cleaning your room, you're framing your mind. You're installing discipline as your first operating system of the day. It's an anchor. A moment where you say to yourself, I don't wait for motivation. I act because it's right. And that's a powerful identity shift. If you can execute order in something as basic as a blanket and pillow, imagine what else you can execute today. Conversations. Deadlines. Hard choices. Because this is how momentum works, you earn it in the tiny, silent decisions no one sees. You don't make your bed because it's easy. You make it because it's yours. Because no one will give you discipline. You either build it, or you surrender to chaos. Admiral William McRaven once said, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. Why? Because it's about starting the day with victory. With clarity. With intention. It teaches you that small acts done well lead to great confidence. And confidence built from integrity always outlasts confidence built from applause. When your mind is tempted to skip it, remind yourself, if you're too distracted to place a sheet straight, How can you expect yourself to stand strong when life throws you into disorder? Making your bed is not a household task. It's a masculine ritual. It's a gesture of self-respect. A choice to embrace structure in a world full of noise and confusion. You will leave your room with more than just neatness. You will leave with proof that you can do something simple and do it well. That you're no longer living reactively. That the old version of you, the scattered, distracted one, is being replaced by something stronger, quieter, sharper. And at the end of the day, when you return to that same bed, made by your own hands, you're reminded of the man you were this morning. The man who didn't flinch. The man who didn't wait. The man who began with order and carried that energy into everything else. So before the coffee, before the emails, before the world has a chance to interrupt, make your bed. Because the way you start is the way you finish. And you are not here to drift. You are here to move forward with precision, presence, and purpose. 4. Be still before you strike. Sit in silence for 3 minutes before anything important. By now, your mornings are no longer chaotic. You've learned to resist the phone. You've woken yourself up with discomfort. You've asserted control over your physical space with a made bed. But now, you're ready for something even deeper, mental dominance. Because true power isn't always loud. It isn't always action. Sometimes, it's the ability to pause in a world obsessed with speed. It's the ability to stand still when every part of you wants to rush. This is where the fourth pillar of your morning mastery comes in. 3 minutes of intentional stillness before any major action. No noise. No scrolling. No reacting. Just you, your breath, and your presence. Before you jump into your to-do list, sit down and do absolutely nothing. Not because you're lazy, but because you're preparing for war. The man who can sit in stillness can walk into storms without flinching. 3 minutes is all it takes. Not an hour. Not a retreat. Just 3 minutes to remind yourself that you are not a machine, you are a man. You lead, you don't chase. You respond, you don't react. Stillness is not weakness. It is strategy. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still made time every morning to return to his thoughts before facing the world. Why? Because he understood the cost of unexamined momentum. When you sit in silence, you detach from noise and return to command. Your nervous system calms. Your awareness sharpens. Your thinking elevates. In that silence, the fog clears and decisions become obvious. You are training your internal rhythm. In a world that tells you to hustle from the moment you wake, you are saying, "No. I don't start with pressure. I start with perspective." Most men skip this because it doesn't look productive. There's nothing to check off. No outcome to brag about. But that's the exact reason it's powerful. It's not performative. It's foundational. Stillness is a high-performance habit. Athletes visualize before they execute. Warriors breathe before they strike. Kings reflect before they lead. And now, so do you. You're building a different kind of strength here. Not the kind people admire on the outside, but the kind that holds firm when everything else collapses. Mental stillness is the armor no one can see but everyone can feel. This is the space where confidence grows. Not from external validation, but from quiet clarity. You don't need to be told what to do, you already know. You just needed silence to remember it. The man who starts from stillness moves with precision. While others rush, he aims. While others scatter, he strikes true. While others burn out, he builds momentum that lasts. This practice will feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind will resist. It will want to move, check, fix, scroll. But if you can master this discomfort, you are no longer at the mercy of your impulses. You are now at the helm. These 3 minutes are not wasted. They are the seed of every meaningful action that will follow. You're not doing nothing. You're doing the most important thing of all, reclaiming control over your inner world. So tomorrow morning, after the water, after the bed, sit. Just sit. Feel your breath. Listen to your heartbeat. Let the silence speak. Let the man within rise to the surface before you ever touch the outside world. And then, when you stand, you will stand differently. Not like a man reacting to life, but like a man who's already chosen how he will show up to everything that comes next. 5. Write to know who you are, 3 lines every morning. You've embraced stillness. You've learned to sit with your breath before acting, an act most men avoid. You've begun the day not with panic, but with presence. Now comes the next shift. Not outward. Inward. Not action, but reflection. This is where your discipline deepens. 3 lines of journaling every single morning. Not a novel. Not a productivity checklist. Just you, confronting your own mind on paper. It's one of the quietest habits you'll ever form, and one of the most transformative. Before you speak to the world, speak to yourself. Your thoughts are wild in the morning, half-formed, emotionally charged, reactive. If you don't capture them, they control you. If you write them, you master them. Writing is not just expression. It is a weapon of clarity. What's vague in your mind becomes precise on the page. What's overwhelming becomes manageable. You realize half your anxiety was smoke, your pen makes it vanish. Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning, not to be read, but to remember who he was. He didn't write to inspire an audience. He wrote to confront his ego, his doubts, his duties. And in doing so, he became stronger than both praise and fear. This is not a diary. It's a battlefield report. 3 lines. Short. Sharp. Real. Not filtered, not poetic, not for social media. Just a brutal check-in with the truth. You are not documenting your day, you are declaring your mind. What are you wrestling with? What matters most? What do you refuse to avoid any longer? If you write it, you can face it. Your thoughts become visible. Your confusion has a shape. And anything with shape can be handled. You're not writing to feel better. You're writing to see better. Most men suppress. Most men distract. But not you. You write. Because you are no longer running from your mind, you're training it. Your journal becomes your mirror. One that doesn't lie. One that doesn't flatter. One that reflects exactly what needs to be faced, without excuse. 3 lines. That's it. But if you write them with brutal honesty, you'll feel more grounded than if you'd written 30. Don't overthink the format. There are no rules except one. Be real. Write what you would never say out loud. Write what you actually think, not what you're supposed to think. Your mind in the morning is raw, unguarded. And that is when it tells the truth. The thoughts that appear now, before caffeine, before conversation, are the thoughts that shape your decisions. Capture them. This habit is not about writing. It's about self-command. The man who writes each morning is the man who refuses to be run by subconscious noise. He's the man who doesn't drift into his day, he walks into it fully aware of what he carries. So tomorrow, after your 3 minutes of silence, sit down. Open a page. And write just 3 lines. Maybe they'll be angry. Maybe they'll be confused. Maybe they'll be focused. But they'll be yours. Not the world's. Not filtered. Not rehearsed. Just raw truth. And from that truth, something powerful happens. You begin to know yourself. Not the polished version. Not the one people see. But the one who leads all the rest. This is where confidence is born. This is where your story gets shaped, line by line, day by day. So write. Even when it feels pointless. Especially when it feels uncomfortable. Because the man who writes with honesty each morning becomes the man no storm can rattle. 6. Reclaim the table, eat slowly, without your phone. You've begun to listen to yourself. You sit in stillness. You write in truth. You face your thoughts, not hide from them. But now, the battlefield shifts again, from the page to the plate. Because even something as basic as how you eat reveals who is in control. And if you want to know where you really stand with your discipline, look no further than your next meal. Eat slowly. Without your phone. Not because it's trendy. Not because it's mindful. But because it's one of the few remaining daily rituals where presence can still be practiced. You eat every day. But how often do you notice it? Taste it? Command it? Or do you inhale your food while your thumb scrolls endlessly? The way you eat is the way you live. If you rush your food, you likely rush your life. If you distract yourself while chewing, you probably avoid silence elsewhere too. This is not about nutrition. This is about attention. Because the real hunger you're feeding isn't in your stomach, it's in your mind. And a phone in your hand while you eat is like static playing over a sacred ceremony. Slow eating is an act of rebellion in a distracted world. Most people devour their meals like they're trying to escape the moment. But you're training to stay in it. To taste it. To breathe between bites. Your meals are not filler, they are a training ground. Every forkful is an opportunity to practice command. Every pause is a chance to reset your nervous system. Every bite is a lesson in restraint. No phone. No notifications. You don't need news while you chew. You don't need messages. You don't need memes. You need your senses. You need your presence. You need to train the part of you that can be alone with yourself, even during something as routine as breakfast. This is where real control is born. Not in the gym. Not in the office. Not in the grand decisions. But right here. With the spoon in your hand. And the urge to distract whispering, just one scroll. Don't negotiate with that voice. Tell it no. Because the man who can sit through a meal in silence is the man who can sit through conflict without panic. He's the man who can resist urges because he's trained to feel them without obeying them. Slow eating is not about slowness, it's about sovereignty. You don't eat like a machine. You don't consume like an algorithm. You receive your food. You respect your body. You honor the moment. Use your meals as moments of presence. Feel the texture. Taste the salt. Notice your breath. Not because you want to be zen, but because this teaches you to live awake, not asleep. Don't multitask your way through nourishment. Food is fuel. But it's also an opportunity. An opportunity to slow down. To unplug. To practice living on your own terms. And when you finish that last bite, without distractions, something powerful happens. You rise from the table not just full, but focused. You move into your next task not scattered, but sharpened. Because you didn't just eat. You trained. So the next time you sit down to eat, ask yourself, am I escaping or am I engaging? Am I numbing or am I noticing? And then, put the phone away. Because this meal, this moment, this habit, is where the man you're becoming is being carved, one bite at a time. 7. No complaining for 24 hours, discipline over words. You've slowed down. You've eaten with presence. You've tasted what it means to live in the moment without needing to escape. Now it's time to take that presence one step further, into the words you speak. Because nothing reveals a man's discipline more than how he talks when things don't go his way. Commit to 24 hours with no complaining. No venting. No sighing. No blaming. No subtle digs disguised as sarcasm. Just pure, intentional speech or silence. Most men complain as a reflex. They don't even realize they're doing it. Traffic. Weather. Work. people, the system. And every time they do, they're reinforcing a message to themselves. I am not in control. Complaining feels good in the moment, but it makes you weaker over time. It tricks you into thinking you've acted when all you've done is surrender. You don't need to be positive. You need to be responsible. This isn't about pretending everything is great. It's about recognizing that your power lies in action, not reaction. When you eliminate complaining, you eliminate victimhood. You stop outsourcing your power to circumstances. You stop letting external chaos dictate your internal order. You begin to realize how often your words shape your identity. Every time you say, "This sucks," or "Why me?" or "Nothing ever works," you're not just commenting on life, you're coding your brain to expect defeat. Silence becomes your strength. You listen more. You observe more. And when you do speak, your words carry weight because they're not just emotional steam. They're sharpened, deliberate tools. The urge to complain will rise. You'll hit traffic. A coworker will be late. Your plans will fall apart. But that's the test. That's the training. That's the moment where your real practice begins. Instead of complaining, you redirect. You ask, "What can I control right now?" You act. You adapt. You move. This habit will change how others see you. You'll become the man people look to when things go wrong, not because you're loud, but because you're stable. Most men talk themselves into stress. You're learning to talk yourself into clarity. No whining. No drama. No emotional pollution. Just stillness, decisions, and forward motion. And when you reach the end of that 24-hour window, something inside you shifts. You don't just feel calmer. You feel stronger. More sovereign. More like a man who owns his life. This isn't about being emotionless. It's about being unshakable. It's about choosing to speak from strength, not from weakness. From presence, not from panic. So for the next 24 hours, hold your complaints. Let others whine about the weather. Let others curse the traffic. Let others blame the world. You stay silent. You stay sharp. You stay in command. Because the man who doesn't need to complain is the man who no longer needs the world to go his way in order to stay powerful. 8. Take the first step now, no delays, not even 5 minutes. You've stopped feeding your weakness with complaints. You've taken back the power of your voice. You've learned to observe, not react. Now comes the next trial. Not of thought. Not of speech. But of movement. Because there is a habit that quietly kills potential more than failure ever could. It doesn't show up with force. It arrives with permission. Just 5 more minutes. I'll do it after this. I need to get into the right mindset first. You already know the feeling. It's familiar. It's seductive. And if left unchecked, it will own you. Kill procrastination before it takes root. When something important appears, act. Not tomorrow. Not later. Not after coffee. Now. 5 minutes of delay is rarely about planning, it's usually about fear. Fear of discomfort. Fear of starting. Fear of not being perfect. But if you act anyway, you destroy fear's power. Every time you act immediately, you send a signal to your brain, I am not ruled by hesitation. That signal, repeated over time, builds into a powerful identity, a man who moves. You're not waiting for motivation. You're not hoping for inspiration. You're choosing movement as your default. Because momentum doesn't come from thinking, it comes from starting. Procrastination is a liar. It promises relief. It gives you anxiety. It tells you, later will be better. But later never comes. And meanwhile, your integrity erodes one quiet excuse at a time. Action is clarity. The moment you begin, confusion fades. Resistance weakens. You stop thinking about doing and start becoming the man who does. The task doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to touch it. Open the file. Make the call. Write the sentence. Lay the first brick. Tiny actions collapse enormous resistance. Time is not your enemy, inaction is. You can reclaim hours of wasted energy simply by refusing to delay the first move. You don't need to finish the task right now. You just need to prove you're willing to begin. And that beginning is more powerful than any goal you set but never touch. Delay is a decision. A quiet one. But still a decision. One that slowly distances you from the man you claim you want to become. The man who acts doesn't negotiate with the impulse to wait. This is about building a reflex. A mindset that says, if it matters, I move. If it feels uncomfortable, I start. Not because I'm ready, but because I've chosen readiness as a lifestyle. The more you practice this, the quieter hesitation becomes. You stop waiting to feel confident. You stop hoping the right time will arrive. You become the man who makes this time the right time. So the next time something important shows up, a hard decision, an uncomfortable task, a next step that matters, don't think. Don't scroll. Don't plan your way out of it. Just do it. Even if it's clumsy. Even if it's messy. Even if you only do the first tiny piece. Because the man who takes action within 5 seconds will always outrun the man who plans for 5 hours. This is where change actually happens. Not in vision boards. Not in affirmations. But in those first 5 seconds when you choose to move, and you move. 9. Read 2 pages, instead of scrolling 10 stories. You've begun moving. You act without delay. You no longer let hesitation anchor you. But now comes a different kind of discipline, not of the body, but of the mind. Because motion is powerful, but without direction, it becomes noise. And in a world drowning in distraction, nothing sharpens a man like the quiet focus of reading. Read 2 pages a day. Not 20. Not a chapter. Just 2. Simple. Small. But deeply intentional. Reading builds depth. In a culture addicted to speed, it trains you to slow down and absorb. It teaches you to think, not just react. To reflect, not just consume. While most people scroll past 1,000 opinions, you will choose to sit with one timeless idea and wrestle with it. Not for entertainment, but for edification. 2 pages a day isn't about information, it's about identity. You are becoming the kind of man who feeds his mind instead of numbing it. Every time you choose a book over your phone, you reclaim a part of your attention span. That quiet, focused state you thought you lost? You're rebuilding it, word by word. Books are slow on purpose. They resist the rush. They demand attention. And that resistance is a gift, because the man who can hold focus in silence can hold composure under pressure. Reading isn't passive. It's mental weightlifting. It challenges your mind to connect, process, evaluate. It's how you stay sharp, not just informed, but equipped. You don't need to read for hours. Just 2 pages. With intention. Without distractions. Let the words work on you. Let the ideas echo long after you've closed the cover. Most men chase novelty. New content. New voices. New videos. But the wise man revisits old truths. He reads the same paragraph twice. He underlines. He wrestles. Because he knows the depth is in the repetition, not the variety. Your phone will offer you 1,000 stories a day. Fast. Bright. Addictive. But none of them make you wiser. None of them slow your heart. None of them shape your character. Books are the gem of the soul. They expose your ignorance. They challenge your certainty. And if chosen well, they elevate the way you see the world and yourself. 2 pages a day is not about knowledge. It's about choosing cultivation over consumption. Because every small moment of quiet reading strengthens your mental resilience. And that strength is rare now. So the next time you feel the reflex to open your phone, pause. And pick up the book instead. You don't need hours. You don't need motivation. You just need 2 pages. Every day. No excuses. No negotiations. Because the man who reads becomes the man who leads. Not loudly, but clearly. Not reactively, but with wisdom that comes not from scrolling, but from seeking. 10. Speak Stoic truth when life hits. Practice the philosophy when it's hard. You've begun to feed your mind. 2 pages at a time, you've chosen depth over distraction. But books are only the beginning. What matters now is what you do when the book is closed. And the world punches you in the face. Because real philosophy isn't what you underline, it's what you embody when things fall apart. When pressure rises, remind yourself, it's not what happens to me, it's how I respond that defines me. That is Stoicism in action. Not in theory. In battle. The Stoics didn't write for comfort. They wrote to train the soul. To face loss. To face insult. To face delay, betrayal, injury, and still remain unbroken. You don't need theory when life is calm. You need philosophy when everything's on fire. When someone lies about you. When plans collapse. When uncertainty wraps around your chest like a vice. That's when you speak the words, not to sound wise, but to anchor your mind. This is not happening to me. It is happening for me. Or, the obstacle is the way. Or, if it's outside my control, I let it go. You're not saying it to impress anyone. You're saying it to remind yourself of who you are and who you refuse to become: bitter, reactive, defeated. Life doesn't care what you've read, it only sees how you act. The point of Stoicism is not intellectualism. It's emotional discipline, behavioral consistency, inner strength that does not depend on outcomes. In the moment of difficulty, your old self will want to explode. Complain. Collapse. Blame. But the trained mind pauses. Breathes. Reframes. That pause? That breath? That is where transformation begins. Every challenge is a rehearsal. A test of your inner operating system. Did you install the Stoic code, or are you still running on ego, fear, and insecurity? You can't control the world. You can barely control your schedule. But you can control your response. And in that response lies your freedom. Your greatest weapon is your perspective. Shift it, and everything shifts with it. Instead of "why is this happening to me?" you ask, "what is this teaching me?" It won't be easy. The instinct to rage will still appear. So will fear. So will self-pity. But now, you have a tool. A sentence. A Stoic mantra forged in fire. I was made for this. Say it out loud if you must. In your car. In the hallway. In the silence of your own mind. Say it when it's hardest. Say it when it feels fake. Because eventually, it won't feel fake anymore. It will feel like the truth. And that's the point of all of this. Not just to read. Not just to write. But to become. You don't study Stoicism to feel superior. You study it so that when chaos finds you, and it will, you don't crumble. You don't lash out. You don't fold. You stand up straighter. And you say the words that the world was never meant to understand. But the man you're becoming cannot live without. It's not the thing. It's my view of the thing. And I control that. This is your moment to act. No more waiting. No more excuses. Choose 3 habits from the 10 principles you've just read, and start today. Not tomorrow. Not when it's convenient. today. Because this is no longer about ideas. It's about action. It's about proving to yourself that you are ready to live differently. Write down the 3 habits you choose. Not for likes. Not for show. For you. To declare your commitment, not to the world, but to the man in the mirror. And if there's a man in your life, a brother, a friend, a colleague, someone you believe is capable of more, of better, of becoming stronger, share this with him. Not to push, but to invite. Because sometimes, the right words at the right time can change the direction of a man's life.